Okay, so anyways, I am now recording this session. So I think that red record light should be showing up on your screen somewhere. Just a little background. I've been trying a little bit or kind of hard to find time myself to do training for my staff and for others that might need it. I've been wanting to put training videos together, and I've done a little bit, but providing training, whether you're creating a video or preparing a lesson, just takes so much time. I've been putting it off too much. So I've wanted to find a way to deliver training to people I need to in a way that I'll actually do it. And I was thought that maybe sort of live streaming my work and doing something would be the way it would get me to just get started on this. So ended up speaking with Mauro on something recently and brought up to him that I was thinking about doing this. So I let him know. So the idea here is I'm not trying to be any kind of professional presenter. I'm not trying to put together anything real flashy. You guys are going to suffer through the chaos that is my daily work. So this is sort of a real glimpse in how I would do this particular task and all of the hiccups that occur on the way. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat. Matter of fact, let me turn that on right now. So if you have a question, you can post it up in there. If you have a question that comes up that you want to ask, feel free to unmute and ask that question. I'm not expecting anything from you as a viewer here. You can have this going on in the background and just pay attention to what you want. I'm also, however, not intending this to be like a real lesson in the basics of TBC. What I want to focus on right now for users to get out of this is the things that are necessary to model this handicap ramp in TBC. So I would like the questions to, I should say what I'm after is the questions be focused on that particular corridor building aspect of this. And if you have other questions, shoot me an email and I'm certainly willing to help in any way I can. But I want to try to maintain focus on the workflow that I'm talking about today. All right, so just a reminder again, I think I'm supposed to keep reminding everybody that this meeting is being recorded. I'll be doing that periodically. Also, I may occasionally let you guys know, hey, I'm going to take a 10-minute break for whatever reason, use the restroom, phone call, or what have you. So if you want to, if you feel like you want to take a break, maybe give me a little bit to see if one of those opportunities arises. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Now, one thing I think that might be a problem is I have kind of a decent sized monitor here I'm using. I want to share the whole screen so that I can bring other stuff into it without having to swap applications that I'm sharing. So I am a little concerned that this isn't going to be super readable for everybody. Oh, darn, I was going to switch my network connection too. Is this coming in fairly clear? Or I should ask, does anybody have trouble seeing this?
That looks good.
Yeah, it looks good.
Anybody having trouble with it?
No.
All right, so good, because I'm on my cellular connection, and I actually meant to switch to my home one for this, but so I'm concerned about the bandwidth and also the screen size. So, all right, with that, I'm going to get started. Oh, good. Oh, never mind. So I'll get started. So I think I shared this detail sheet in the invite. So this is a handicap ramp or ADA ramp. that's being rebuilt to current standards. Fairly basic one. And so just to kind of, I don't know if everybody's familiar with some of the things about this. So we have an alignment that follows the flow line or the gutter here, created by our design engineer. We let them do this on all of these, even if it's parallel to a center line, for consistency within a project, because frequently that they need to have, we have a return alignment. So for consistency on the project, where if this were a normal construction project, I would want to see this built off of the main roadway center line here. But because it's a project that has a lot, it's focused primarily on ramps, we actually prefer that they just stick with that for consistency's sake. Another thing about this is all of the grades are being given as callouts at the station. Some of these designs will have a table, which I find very difficult to use. So I'm glad they went with this route and doing callouts like this. We've recently been working with design on another way of presenting return data where they actually put the slopestake notes on the detail sheet. But this is the most common one I think I found for this work. So anyways, first thing I like to do on a TBC project, I'll create a project. I have a template that is I have a template that was created from the Office of Land Surveys starts that I then created one for my district and some other settings. So I've already done that. I've already created the project, and I've already imported our existing ground surveys. So that's already been done. So the next thing I want to do is get alignments in here. So on the plans, we have a P7 line. So I'm going to import that. By the way, I'm using TBC version 531, I think. Let me check. Ooh. Oh, and I'm running this over a network connection too. Probably was not the best idea. So some of this stuff may take a little time. Okay, so somewhere's in here we have an alignment. There it is. So in this case, I just highlighted it here on the alignments list so that it was easier to find. Okay, so normally I would ask our engineers to also give me the curb alignments as XML files. And that hasn't happened yet. I emailed him this morning, but that's okay. For this, in this case, I'm going to just create it. So I'm going to need to have two things going at once here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is create it. We have mainline callouts to that alignment. So I'm going to create the alignment in TBC. All right, so that's the create arc command here. Well, so anyways, when you're creating an alignment and you have curves, for an alignment, you need to start with a coordinate and you need the bearing going into that curve. I think you have to have that. So we don't have that here. All we have for this alignment, this curb flow line alignment, is one arc with the BC and an EC location. So I'm missing a little bit of information which would have allowed me to go straight to creating the alignment. But what I can do is create an arc and then turn that arc into an alignment. And that's what I'm going to do. So here's on the button right here on TBC is create arc. Something I want to point out is there's this command pane that's kind of new to TBC. I think it came out maybe in version 5.0. I think there's a little thing on the bottom here that opens it. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, there's a command line button down on the bottom and one on top up on here somewhere. But I've started using that a lot more. And so if you need a command and you don't know where to find it in the multitude of buttons and tool options you have, and you can just start in the command line and maybe type arc, and then there it is, create arc. So that's one way to find things that you don't necessarily know they're there. So on my screen, I always have on the right side of my TBC window, I have a properties and a command line command pane open together in one pane.
Have you already had your bagels?
So if everybody would mute, don't forget to mute, please. I don't know how to do that while I'm sharing a screen. So this is called CR20. I'm going to create a new layer for these. So when you have a layer highlighted, you hit spacebar and the layer manager comes up with a new layer ready to go. And I'm going to call these curve alignments. That's going to be my layer, and I want it to be yellow. So now it's on curve alignments layer. And the reason I do that is I might want to apply some things to those alignments as a group, or I might want to turn them on or turn them off independent of some other alignments. So the next thing we have is a start. So now I'm just going to leave it at a 0 elevation, and now we need to determine, by the way, TBC and like most Trimble products is set up is to be the panes come up in sort of a workflow. So you go top to bottom. So I started with naming it and putting it in a layer. And then now I need to decide how I'm going to create it. So for this one, I know I have a start point and an end point. But I don't know any angles, or I don't know bearings. So I do know what the radius is. So I'm going to go start end radius. All right, so now my start point, I don't have a coordinate though, but I do have a station and offset. So we zoom in on that start point. So what you can do is there's a lot of nested hidden COGO commands in TBC. So when you have a location, and they're all context sensitive. So we're asking for a coordinate here. If you right click in this menu or in the field, the list of things that might work in there come up. So we need to get the offset from a line. So I'm right clicking in the coordinate point, and then I'm selecting offset line. And then again, this is workflow related. So it wants, what line do you want? I want that P7 alignment. The station I want is maybe copyable here. Yep, that's copyable. And the offset I want is that. Okay, and then it computes the coordinate. So for my endpoint, I'm looking for this guy right here. Once again, I'm going to do a COGO offset line command. Station. Control C to copy. Offset. And then the last thing we want is the radius. So I'm going to pull that off the curve table. Well, I guess that's not the last thing because we need a direction now too. So we started here and went there, and the radius is to the right of that. So I'm going to tell it it's a right. Hit apply, and hopefully it shows up in the right spot. Looks like it did. Okay, so now I have I have an arc. But what I need for my corridor is an alignment. So I'm done making that arc. So I want to create an alignment now. That command is in the corridors tool. I can go bigger now. So under corridors, create alignment.
Curve 3D.
This one is going to be called CR20, I think. By the way, I never trust my memory. I'm always trying to copy or refer to things when I need it. Most people are probably better than about that. So for my layer, I want to have the curve alignments layer on that. And then I want to use an existing line. Now I'm going to select this CAD arc called CR20 and go OK. So now the reason we had to do that is so we could get this bearing into it. And that's what we got. Now we can change our station to match. Let me look at the direction because that bearing in is kind of going north, and I thought it was going the other way. Looks like it went backwards to me. 992, 1020. No. Yeah, it did go backwards. So that's not what I expected to happen. So I think we can reverse this arc. So just to kind of point out what's going on, when I created the alignment, it had a bearing going, starting from the south and going north. But even though I kind of keyed in that arc the other way, but our alignment starts down here, starts from the north and kind of goes southerly along the arc. So when you think about how we can reverse this, reverse line string direction. Did that do it? It looks like it did it. Okay. Now let's try it again. All right, so there was a button on that command pane that reversed it, I hope. So once again, I want to create an alignment. So that's there in my command pane as a recently used command, CR20. Layer is going to be curve alignments, use an existing line, this CAD line. Okay, now I want to see something more along the lines of 170 or 155. Good. All right, so now we're going the right direction. And I just need to get a start station for that matches that planned start station. Once again, I expect to get this ready to go from the engineer. I just haven't gotten it from him yet. Okay, so also I like to tab out of fields when I enter stuff in there to make sure it takes. So I think we are ready to go with that alignment horizontally. So I want to just check it by floating through there. So down at the lower right of TBC windows, from as early as I can remember, and I've been using TBC since version 1.4, is a coordinate scroll. So it pops this window up somewhere. It could be on a totally different computer screen, but when that's gold, it should be somewhere, and it displays coordinates and other things that you configure. So I think you right click on it. Right click on the top maybe. Right click. Okay, you right click in the body of this, and you can tell it what you want to see. So I don't want to see that, whatever that is. I want station offset, surface elevation, and coordinate. And let's put the surface name in there too. So now when you have something selected, you can see I've selected this surface, and it's showing me that surface elevation, and it's also giving me a station and offset along the alignment CR20. So there's a wealth of information available to us that can be useful in this coordinate scroll, what's it called? Coordinate scroll. So just kind of making sure I got the stationing right. It's tug it on. There we go. It's an alignment 993.34. So it looks like I have the stationing right, and it is increasing as we go southerly down the alignment. It's all right. That's good. That's a good start. This coordinate scroll doesn't really dock well. It seems to take up more space. Always seems to take up more space than it needs. So I usually leave it floating. For the time being, I'm going to turn it off though. All right. So now we have a horizontal alignment. But for a corridor, you also need a profile on the alignment. So that's this vertical tab. This is the edit coordinate screen or edit alignment. So if that wasn't available, go select the horizontal line. By the way, I'm going to get rid of that line string now. So there's a line string under there. I've now selected it. I'm going to go right click and delete so that's gone. So I'm selecting the horizontal alignment. TBC has very good context sensitive right click menu. So if I right click on that and I can go edit, and that brings up this coordinate edit pane in the bottom. And from there, I can select vertical, create a new vertical alignment, and call it flow line, I guess. Oops, that's not right. All right, it's given it the center line name, and I'm good with that. So, all right, so now I need to just do some of the rote work of keying in a profile. There is a quicker way to do this using a macro that you could actually paste it in from a table. I'm going to do it the hard way, I think, today. So before I get started, though, I think what I'm going to do on this is highlight a couple of these to make it easier for me to follow. One thing that this engineer did that's helpful is he's put his callouts, I think it's a he. Yeah, David Park. So he put his callouts kind of in order as it flows. So as we're going up the alignment, as we go down the page, all of these are in order until you get to this last one and it hops over. So that's going to make it a lot easier to use this. But what I want to do is, that's the wrong one. I want to highlight the some stuff in here. And why am I not seeing that? Well, I was thinking it would be handy to highlight the PDF file, like with all the flow line elevations blue. But I'll be darned if I'm not seeing that right now. Also, a lot of times PDFs, you can't edit them, and it looks like I'm going to have that trouble too. So never mind, I'm not going to do that. So to start with, okay, and now in a corridor, it will only create your corridor where it has a profile. We don't have an elevation at the beginning station, but that's okay. We can add our profile in the middle of an alignment or anywhere along it. So starting at station 9 plus 95, 94. We have a flow line elevation of 429.30. I'm not going to narrate each one, but I'm going to go through and do that for all of these. That one got messed up. Oh, we're starting to see some TBC weirdness already. Okay, I think that's all of them. And for alignments, you don't have a save, as far as I know. Once you tab out of a field, it's updated. So, but I'm going to leave this edit alignment open because I want to help myself keep the format of the TBC screen consistent. And I want to have this bottom pane open all the time. And I also want to put this back. All right. So now we have a horizontal and vertical alignment. And that's necessary for a corridor. You have to have a horizontal alignment and a vertical alignment on center line. So, okay, by the way, there's a whole another one in here. The CR1 was done already. So now I want to create, so I've created an alignment, and now I want to create a corridor. This is CR20. It's I think because I have CR20 up, it's selecting that for me. For original ground, I'm going to select this DTM surface. Good, that worked. So again, I'm just going top to bottom through here. So for original ground, that's going to be used for catching slopes, I think. And these fill materials are if you're trying to do some volume calculations. So generally, in my office, we're not doing that. So we leave those undefined. Reference lines are other lines that you want to use or view while you're working on your corridor. So if you had something that you were going to target for an offset, let's say, you would need to add it to a reference line. If you wanted to view another alignment while you were working, you wanted to see that alignment in your cross-section view, you would add it here. And then reference surfaces, I'm pretty sure, are ones that you want to be able to target for completing this. So for now, I'm going to leave reference surfaces out. But at any time, you can add things to this. So you're not stuck with what you choose right now. So just to make sure we got this right, CR20. Okay, so the next thing it wants to do is it says if you're creating a corridor, you have to have a template. So whenever I'm creating a corridor, what I like to do, so the way corridors work is you have a template which consists of a set of instructions, and it applies that template from the station it's assigned to forward. And a lot of times we may not want it to go past a certain point. So one of the first things, or when I'm doing this and thinking about it, doing it right, what I do is I give it a cutoff where I absolutely do not want it to work any further. So in this case, first of all, it really isn't necessary here, but I do want to demonstrate what I consider best practices, and that is to create a cutoff template immediately after the last work you do. So we're ending at 10 plus 2500, and it may not even be possible here because the alignment ends there. But just for best practices, I'd recommend putting a cutoff template there, leave it blank, and call it cut or something like that. Now, it's not going to let me do it, but in practice, will make a liar out of me, please. Okay, so apparently it did. I thought our alignment ended there. Well, anyway, it let me do it, but we get that coordinate scroll back up. Could be the math just meant that there is actually a station. It's a little longer than we thought. So, yeah, okay. The alignment went a little longer. That makes me a little concerned why that alignment is longer than it's supposed to be. Because the alignment is supposed to be 25 feet long, yet the thing we created is 2506. Well, I'm going to pretend that didn't happen so we can continue. But my next thing would be on this would be to figure out why my alignment geometry didn't match up. But let's pretend that didn't happen so I can at least keep working on it.
It could be that he changed the radius of the curve and didn't update his table in the PDF.
Mark, was that you? Would you repeat
Yes.
that, please?
I'm thinking maybe the engineer, maybe they rounded it different, the radius of the curve. I guess you could still have the beginning and end point would be the same, but if you have a different radius, then the length of your curve, and then again, the length of your alignment would be different.
Yeah, so I think maybe for that radius, I would guess that you have to move that radius quite a bit to affect 600ths and change. But regardless, it would certainly be something I would address from the onset. Normally, I would get an alignment from the engineer, and I would check it against the plans. So that step in this is missing. So ideally, I would have done that. Everything would have been great. I would have showed you me checking it, and then we'd move on. In this case, we're not doing that, but we're going to pretend if it's possible for us to let go of that and just move on, we will. So it looks like it's in the right spot, but we do have some geometric problems here. So I clicked on the screen and I didn't know what it did, so I hit escape because I'm in this alignment editor and I don't want to mess that up. So now we've created in our corridor we've created a corridor, and now we're creating the first template in the corridor, which I've called this cutoff one at the end. And templates can have, and most do have, instructions in them. In this case, since I'm saying this is where I want I want to start having nothing happen, I'm going to leave it blank. So that's that. So the next thing right away I would do is go back to create a new corridor template. You can do that on the top of that screen, or you can right click on your corridor and go insert new or create new, insert corridor template, and it brings you to this one. And right away it's going to say what station do you want it to start at. So that's going to be begin station here. We don't have any that we could copy from or reference right now, so it has to be new. And in this case, let's see. Okay, we're going to build this one by using multiple templates, I think. If I was doing this myself, I would do it if, I don't know, I guess, am I supposed to do that? You can see right here, I have a completed corridor that is built on two templates. And there's a lot going on in there. And you can do that with tables. And I'm kicking around in my head whether I want to do that here. Let's try it. It's just a lot harder to. We're gonna do individual templates. So this is the begin work, or we call it match maybe. I told you this is going to be chaotic. All right, so I don't know if it would help everyone if you had this plan sheet on your up yourself, but put a bookmark in there for when I get lost. All right, so we're going to build this section right here that's shown in this. All right. And I'm going to have this off the screen, I think. So it's asking for my set of instructions. So it's always going to start where you tell it. And I think if there's nothing in there, this top line that you'll see filled here, it will naturally default to the center line. But I think best practice is to call out always what you want it to start from, either reference a line, another node, or previous node. So I'm going to tell it I want to start on center line. I'm going to build the left side, which is going towards the saw cut away from the sidewalk. I'm going to build that first. So we're starting in the gutter. Our offset is going to be, you know what's going to mess me up on this? I'm sure it'll get me, is that when we go to the right on the page, we're going left on the alignment. So I know I'm going to mess that up at some point. So I'm going to go minus 151 in offset. Oh, sorry. first thing you do is you tell it what kind of instruction you want. For curbs, it's easier to do offset elevation usually. And when you do that, it clears all your other fields out. So I'm going to go along the lip to the left 1.51 feet. And our options for elevation are we can give it a distinct elevation, we can give it a change, or we can do a lot of other stuff. And actually, since I'm basically going to be transcribing what is in this plan set, I think everything we do on this particular return is going to be offset elevation. So we're going to go right to elevation. Normally, if you were building a corridor off of plans, you would have delta elevation here. So we're doing the lip just to show you what I'm getting. So I went this 151 distance out at this location, and then I'm going to pull that lip elevation off of here. I think it's a 4. And then give it a name lip. And then so whatever. You can have several material layers in here, but generally for surveyors, we're working with finished grade. So most of the time you want that checked. There are some work that you do in corridors where you would not check that. But for this, we're going to have them all checked. All right, so we add that. And now it's built the lip at that offset and that elevation all the way through. For the time being, I'm going to turn off this surface. So you can do that by opening surfaces, and you can toggle visibility to make it go away. Another way to do that, well, just to kind of back up a minute. Typically on my TBC screens on the left pane, I have these 3 tabs available: View Filter Manager, Selection Explorer, Explorer, and the Project Manager. For office type work doing corridors, you really don't need the Selection Explorer. That's really helpful when you're working with field work. So I'm going to turn that off. So in the View Filter Manager, we can turn off a surface here from view. Oh, but I'm in the locked one, so I need to go off the locked one to my filter. And now I can turn off that. So now we're just looking at the corridor being built. And just kind of finish up the talk about the windows and pane configuration. When I'm working in something where I want to view it also in 3D, I will turn on a 3D view right now. It threw itself up in this little bottom pane. So I'm going to put that on the right side of this top section. And this is just so persnickety. It can be really hard to get this docked correctly. I think I've actually discovered this is really related more to when I'm WebEx sharing the window. So let me try stop sharing for a moment and see if that helps. That works. All right, let me share again. Okay, so now Now I'm back to sharing the screen, and you can see I have my 3D view here on the right and my plan view on the left. So the cool thing about this is as I build this, I can see it being drawn, and it's a real quick way to catch an elevation bust. One thing you probably, if you're going to do a lot of work with the 3D view open in TBC, you probably want to get used to using the right mouse button to pan, because in the plan view, the middle button pans, but when you go to 3D view, the middle button rotates it. So I managed to get myself used to using the right mouse button to pan for both windows. A little tip there for you. So you can see just right away, looking in this TBC 3D view, that curb gutter pan looks a little weird. And the reason that is because we have an elevation set at a particular elevation. So this lip line is at a single elevation, but the flow line varies along the profile. So we're going to be fixing that as we go. So I want to look at this as we build it sort of in this view. But right away you can see we have a problem with this. And that's because we haven't identified new elevations along this lip yet. So okay, back to our corridor. And I have to move this up a little bit. So in the corridor cross-section view, we've got these two here. And I am noticing that I would want to see my EG surface here. So I think what I need to do is add that to the corridor. And so you have to go to the corridor itself, and it's either edit or properties. Let me select it and look in the properties. So it's edit. You have to edit the corridor. And this is where you can add a reference surface. So let me add that EG surface and see if it shows up. Now it showed up there. Okay, great. And you can see now we're showing that, okay, already it's getting me messed up. So the left side here is going to the right direction there. All right, now I'm back on, my mind's back wrapped around this. It's all right. So you can see our lip's a little bit lower than the existing here, but that's okay because we have a saw cut line here that is 4.49 feet out from the lip. So that's going to be our next instruction. So now it's asking for another instruction. Working down it, we're always going to do offset elevation. Now we can use previous nodes. So it's going to go to the one above it and add to it what you enter. So one thing to remember, when it says offset in editing the corridor template, I got to get a drink. It's not talking about your centerline offset. It's talking about the offset from whatever you define here, which is good because in this case our plans are dimensioning like that. So 4.49 feet to the left, and you can enter that minus before or after 4.49 minus, and it'll fix that for you. And that lip elevation is, let me close a couple windows down. I'm getting confused because the PDF and Adobe Acrobat are both red. So my mind keeps making me want to click on Civil 3D. Yeah, the Civil 3D icon and PDF icon are both red, and it's messing me up. So, okay, our saw cut elevation is that. And we're going to put that in there as this elevation. Remember, the purpose of me doing this right now, I guess I should have led with that, is I want to make sure the plans as they're presented build this correctly. So some of the things I want to check are, I want to check our joins. I want to check for just a cursory look at ADA compliance. So I want to look at some of the slopes on some of the key features of this. And so what we could do is get out a calculator and pencil and paper and whip up a bunch of grades, and we could mess around with the EG surface and see if it matches. Or I can just basically build this in TBC and see how it looks. And that's what we're doing here. Is we're building this ramp in the plant from the plans in this 3D model space in TBC, and then we're going to check it there. So anyways, this is our saw cut. We'll check this one more time. 449, saw cut 429.81. Add that. Now I want to see this join pretty close to that. And it looks like it's 100. That's good. All right. Good job, engineer. Passed the first test. You actually used our EG surface to join. So looking at it here in 3D, looks good. Probably not going to look so great here. So one thing you can do in TBC, there's this slider bar down below when you're in your corridor. You can move, just slide up and down station when you're in your corridor and see how things look. Or you can enter a discrete station here in this field to the left of that. And then these arrows can slide you to your next defined template or even station. While I'm looking through here, I reminded myself, oh, I want to see elevations on these points, and that's in options settings. This brings up 2, and the corridor template view is 1, and it brings up this project settings. Now, the project settings window here is the same one you get if you go here, and then you go view, corridor template view. It's the same thing. It's just when you use this, it brings you right to the one you want. So I want to keep my grid lines on, so I'm not gonna mess with that. But I want to show elevation. So include elevation, show. Now it's going to display the elevations of each one of the nodes for our corridor on this cross-section view. Another thing in the cross-section view, if you want, thought it displayed the scale ratio, but it will when you so you can hold Control Shift and scroll up and down to change your vertical exaggeration, and I like to leave it at 1:1. So that was Control Shift and scroll wheel to adjust your vertical exaggeration. All right, so we're done building to the left, and we've at this station we're matching saw cut, so we're happy with that. Now we want to build from the gutter to the right. So it's ready to take the next template, and it's defaulting to previous node, which usually is what you want, but in this case, no, we're going to start at a different spot, go back to our CR20, and we have a curb to build. So our engineer's given us begin A26 curb. So we're going to deal with the A26 standard here. And I'm fine with him skipping the front of the curb. He's given me the elevation of the curb for both at 429.80. So I'm going to copy that while I have this here. So my offset is 0.13. It's actually 1.5 inches, so you might see it as 0.12 sometimes. And the elevation is that. Oh, I keep missing that 4. And I'm going to call this top of curb. All right, so we got a curb here, got a curb there. Now we're going to the back. Offset is 1/2 foot with the same elevation. Add that. Okay. Again, it's throwing that all the way through here. Curious thing happened right there. We'll see what happens when we get to that. And now we have our sidewalk at the join to put in. So they're saying that's 503 from, it looks like the back of curb. With this elevation. And here I expect to see it join as well. Right away we see our slope here, 159. I think 2% is the absolute worst it could be, and we're off by about a tenth. So that's a little bit of a problem right there in my mind. If we do join existing ground here, it's going to be flatter, which is good. So that's just something I'm going to keep in the back of my mind. I do want to double check that elevation. 429.88. 429.88. Okay. All right. So that's our first section. On to the next. So we've built this. Now we have this sidewalk tapering out. We have our lip tapering out, ending that transition at 10 a pair. So we're going to create a new corridor template at 10 a pair. So I'm going to use this button right here to insert a new corridor template. We have our one at 995, whatever. Next one's at 10 a pair. And what I'm going to do is copy my previous one. So that I can just change some elevations and offsets. So what's happening at this station 10? We're ending our tapers. Maybe something else. Let's see what else might be happening there. Yeah, so we're ending our curb and sidewalk transitions at that station. I'm copying the definition from CR20 from the beginning. So it took everything in that template we just did and it moved it here. And so now what I'm going to do is just edit those offsets and elevations. All right, so we're going to the lip first. If you double click one of these, it brings it up here to edit, or you can select it, right click, and go edit to do that. So again, going to the left at this station. Now we're going to have a standard 2-foot lip here and a 6-foot sidewalk. The lip elevation is that. I'm going to copy it while I have this open. So now this is -2. Elevation that. Now you're going to see a little change there in the 3D and 2D view. You can see now we've built that taper in. And the elevation was updated, but wasn't really noticeable. So now I'm going to edit the sidewalk one. Excuse me, the saw cut line. That is shown here is 4 feet out from the lip. And that's the elevation, which I'll copy. All right, so we're done outside the gutter. Now we're going to see our top of curb. Now this is one, thinking about it, where you don't have to do defined elevations. But we're going to do it. We could just do an offset. They're using a standard curve. So I mean, a real easy one to do would be this back of curb. I'm going to change that to delta elevation when we get to it. I'm going to do this one as a delta elevation too. So I'm going to tell it to go up 1/2 foot. I'm going to go back to the previous node by using this, or template, using this arrow, and I'm going to change that there as well. So it kept the same one selected. I'm going to switch it to delta elevation to go up 1/2 foot. Don't forget to hit save there. And then for the back of curb, I'm going to change it and say that delta elevation is 0. Now skipping up ahead to the template we just created. The back of curb one, I need to change that as well. So instead of actually pulling an elevation off the plans for each one, I'm just going to tell it to go flat. And that'll save me some editing as we step across here. So on this one, I've changed the saw cut, and the top of curve is now delta, back of curve is now delta, and now we're on to the back of sidewalk. This station, I'm going to keep using an elevation here. And our sidewalk dimension is 6 feet now. So 6 to the right, make it that elevation. Okay, so now we've got this pretty much looking like that with these tapers here. We'll be checking all of this stuff later. And we're ready for our next station. What's happening at the next one? That's where the ramp begins and a retaining curb begins. All right, so templates of 3. Copy the previous one. All right, so the saw cut, excuse me, the lip offset's the same, but we do have a new elevation. Saw cut, offset. We continue. Okay, so just to close this out. Offset's going to be 4 for the rest of this for that saw cut. And we're here, elevation, that. Okay, we're on that side of it. Now to the top of curb. Everything, nothing to edit at the top of curb here or the back of curb. And we're going to our sidewalk, elevation. All right. So that's in. So now a little general stuff about corridors, just a moment. It builds what you define forward. So we don't have a retaining curb before us and we're going to add one. So all we need to do is add another instruction here for a retaining curb. However, if we were ending a retaining curb, we would need to do something a little different. So if you wanted to keep things really tight, what you could do is bookend this section with this particular set of features or nodes by putting this set of instructions 100th before the retaining curb. There's some merit in doing that in certain situations. In this situation, there isn't any. I'm not going to have an extra template right before this retaining curb. I'm just going to go right to creating a retaining curb. But I did want to just call that out as something that you might find you have to do in certain situations. So I'm going to just highlight this, right click, and go add. I don't think we're given this dimension for the retaining curve here, but I know it to be a 1/2 foot. So we're going to go a 1/2 foot out. And in this case, the elevation is the same. I think that's in my clipboard. And this is the, what are we calling it in these? This is the torque, T-O-R-C. All right, so far it's looking like we want it to. And then we have, right after that, we have the back of the retaining curve. So it's, oh, you know what? I messed that up. The torque is actually offset 0.01. So I don't think you can, and I never do, build things directly above one another, whether that's in station or offset. So I put this retaining curb 100th outside the back of sidewalk. So now I'm going to add the back 0.49 out so that the ultimate offset is the same. And the elevation is delta. We're going to go with the delta elevation of 0 on this. All right, so now we have this retaining curb built here. At this station, it is the same elevation as the front of the retaining curb and the sidewalk. So far, so good. Now this starts the ramp. On to our next station. How are we doing on time? Have we been at this an hour already? Okay. So our next station is the end ramp here. I think we're doing good on time, by the way. That's at 10 plus 11, 37. Going to copy my previous one. All right, so I'm going to update that lip elevation. Update my socket elevation. Wonder if I did something I didn't need to do. So I'm on the socket. How's that looking? Looking real good. Top of curve now is not at 1300s, right? It's at 100. The delta elevation is 0. Now we're going to see a big change in this ramp. There we go. So that's looking like I think we want it to look. The back of curb is now 6200ths in offset. Still no elevation change. So looking at it here, we want to see a fatter curb start. There we go. The sidewalk is always 6 feet out. But we have an updated elevation here at the bottom of the ramp. All right, starting to look like we want. And the rest of these retaining curb need to check. Okay, yeah, they don't have a standard height, so we definitely need to enter at least the torque elevation here. All right. And what I'm thinking I should do is look at some of these calculated elevations to make sure they're okay. 429.14, 429.14. Oh, we went 100th up on our curb there. Okay, no problem. Probably should check that on some of the others. So that's going to the back of curb. No problem. Delta elevation 100th. We check back 1, 2 station, 10 plus 03. Back of curb elevation. And you can see why I wanted to display elevations here. 429.73 is good. Okay. All right. So now our next, oh, sorry, I was looking off the screen. So I believe we were done with 1137. Now we need to do the end landing station at plus 17. That's our next one in line. No. Tab, copy, I hit C for that. This is end landing. Still looking a little kooky here at the end. Yeah, I've been having trouble with TBC getting it to stop putting the surfaces in the 3D view. And so that's still happening for us. Even though we have it turned off in our view filter manager, it's still showing up in this 3D view. There we go. All right. You got to select the plan view or the view you want to affect. There. Oh, you learn something new every day. All right. Back to this. So we're at 10 plus 17. I'm going to work on my lip. So the lip elevation is 429.11. And the reason I don't go with the standard slope or vertical offset or vertical difference or delta elevation in the lip is sometimes we have these lips, you know, rotating a bit. So we're going to keep always be entering that elevation for this sort of work. So our lip is still 2 feet all the way through. 17. Onto the lip. A new elevation. All right. Saw cut next. Uh-oh. Yeah, there it is. So just to point, just kind of show this. You can see I made a boo-boo and didn't get the elevation right. But if I was just looking in plan view, I wouldn't have caught that right away. But because I had this 3D view open, it was obvious that I did something really bad. So and it's my common thing that's happening is that I'm missing the 4 on the copy. So there we go. That's the lip. Now to go to the other side. We're looking at low line elevation. $429.08. Well, we're going up 100th on this one. Let's see if we're doing that on this. Well, yep. Okay, so that's happening good. Our curve is good. Now we're going to edit the back of sidewalk. Yeah, sucker. Got to get better at that. All right. And the elevation for the retaining curb. All right, so that's our ramp. So what we have going on next is the retaining curb goes out and is perpendicular here. So if I wanted to, I could add a few stations in here and some fancy corridor building to make this retaining curb display like this and include this portion that's perpendicular to the alignment. But I don't think it's worth the effort. So what I'm going to do is stop the retaining curb right here at the end of the ramp and just build the regular curb after that. So just let you know it's going to look a little weird. But this is where we start having to add a couple extra stations to make this work right. So what I need to do is end the retaining curb and the sidewalk. But we already have instructions at 10 plus 17. So I'm just going to create one that's 10 plus 1701 that doesn't include that information, and it'll stop it there. Okay. Oh, that's one. So 10 plus 1701, I'm going to copy. This is the curve only portion. I'm going to copy the end landing. And I'm going to remove the retaining curb and sidewalk. Okay, so now this portion here is right here at this station. Something else is happening here. We also are stepping up with this standard A26 curb. So I need to make another change there. A couple others. The lip and the saw cut are the same, but my top of curb is now back to being 1300ths to the right. Whoops. And half a foot up. There. So now we're building something that is a lot closer to what we want. And again, I just don't think it's worth the effort to model that cutoff curve there. So a 10 plus 20, we have a, okay, that's where the existing curb ends and the dike begins. So we have to do that one. A little bit of a coincidence that it's ending right there at 10 plus 20, I think. Let me see if I can come up with a real name for that. I'm just going to leave the name blank. Or the template name blank. But we are going to copy template 17. All right, going back to the saw cut or lip elevation. That was the same thing because I grabbed the wrong one. Okay, I think that's done. Just double check our heights here. This is probably level again. Yeah, so I need to fix that delta elevation back to 0, and I probably need to do that on the previous one as well. Always gonna, you're gonna forget to hit save there a bunch of times when you're doing this work. So let me go back. I'm gonna fix this, which is probably also supposed to be level there. Click on this plan. So at this station, no, it's up 100. Okay, whatever. Okay, so that's that. So the last thing is this weird thing that was happening here. Why didn't this last part get built? First question is, where is it at? So I'm going to bring my corridor or coordinate scroll back up, zoom in here and see that we're at station 10 plus 24. And it's a foot short for the curb section. And the lip. The silence is me thinking. Anybody have any idea why that's not being drawn?
Did it run out of profile?
Well, yeah, that's the first thing you should think, Mark, and I would say yes, except for it's drawing this for some reason, but it still should be checked. So we go to CR20 and go to our profile. CR20, we're ending at 1025 is our last one. This station is the station we're at is I think that that's a good thing for what might be going on. So what I'm going to do is fake us out a little bit and add a hundredth to that. There it is. So yeah, Mark, that was it. For some reason, it just didn't quite reach it. I don't know why it drew that saw cut in and didn't do the others, but yeah, that was a fix. Good call, Mark. So I think we're done. Now, how the next thing to do? So this is a good chance for me to use the restroom. You guys use the restroom or something if you want. The next thing we're going to do is utilize this to do some basic checks. So let's say at 11:05, we'll get back to it. So I'm going to mute and I'll be back in 6 minutes.
Way to go, Mark.
That was an easy one. That was soft serve.
Sorry, just putting a lunch order together. All right, so while I wait for the other office mate to get back to me, we'll get started. Okay, so I think we have it built correctly. And sorry, getting a lot of messages now about the election. You know, 4 years ago, I was at Trimble Dimensions on this day. It was very quiet that morning, Wednesday morning. All right, so now I'm going to enable the EG surface on both view panes. And what I want to do is, first I want to just take a look at our saw cut line. Some engineers have a habit of not getting that right. So that's in surfaces. We can do a surface slicer view. And what I'm going to do is make a slice that goes perpendicular-ish to the alignment. And I want to make it so that I can kind of scroll around. So I'm going to get kind of where the radius of this curve might be. And I'm going to run just run it along there. So I think you can zoom in. So if I'm good about this, it's coming out. So what I'm just going to do is kind of scroll along here and see make sure that saw cut's staying pretty close to the EG surface. It may help sometimes in this case to change the color of one of these. So maybe I want to make this surface here. Oops, got to get out of this. Maybe I make the EG surface blue. So change its color to, now tab out of that. And is it blue? It is blue. So go back to surface slicer. And it is blue there. Yeah, it worked. So moving around here, looks like our saw cut line is staying pretty close. The grids are at 1/2 foot. We're getting a little bit squirrely right here. One thing to keep in mind is since we're entering elevations, it's going to prorate those elevations between here. So if our EG surface, like in between these templates, is off a little bit, I'm not going to get too concerned about that. And in this case, we're looking at it being well under 1/10. So I'm not concerned at all here. So that's checking our saw cut. We can also have a look at what that retaining curve is doing. and apparently not a lot. Looks like our EG isn't even getting halfway up it. So fine, not whatever. So that's checking the socket, the joins that way. So we also want to check our joins on the sidewalk. And this is that one we identified earlier in our section view at the beginning of this. We recognize that our back of sidewalk elevation is not joining the existing ground elevation or existing sidewalk. So this would be something I would point out to our engineer and might tell him that at this point, I'm not going to be able to select it, but you can see the EG surface in the, so I'm looking at this coordinate scroll and coming over here, and the EG surface showing us surface name elevation is 429.77. And our plans have it at 429.88. So we have it. What did I just do? Oh, I'm still in edit. So we have a join elevation problem here. So I'm going to point that out to our design engineer. But actually, how does our sidewalk match there? Did you see that? Or our curb? Our curb is off as well. So our curb is about a tenth lower too, maybe. So anyways, we've got yeah, it's rotated. So the existing sidewalk is flowing away from the curb where the new one is coming up. So I'm just going to have that be something I point out to this engineer, is that our join at station 9 plus 95, 94 is off. All right, so that's that. Does the flow line match though? Looks like it. Flow line elevation matches, but the offset is off a little bit, which doesn't concern me a whole lot. How do we match on the other side? So anyways, I just want to point out the surface slicer is a really great way to check your joins. Oops. So it looks like our flow line's joining really good, but the it's just that this lip is not going to. So we're looking at 1500s here off the lip, but I think this. I don't miss that. About 800ths here. Real close. So the good thing is this isn't going to impact the suitability for disabled access, because that's happening over here. This is our transform area. So I think this is going to end up being fine. That this will just have to work to existing. Anybody disagree with that? I still probably point it out. Mark or Chaz?
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead. So anyways, yeah, go ahead, Chaz.
sorry guys. I was looking at another TBC project. Are you speaking about the difference in the curb heights at the join?
No, it's just that our join here at the end isn't great. So, but I'm saying it's well past our ADA compliance area, and that it's in a transform. So I think having being off about a tenth there is okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're going to build that curb per the detail or whatever, or the at the beginning, and then they're really just going to match what's there at that first station.
Yeah,
If it's the same type of curb at all, sometimes at tops of ramps, we're going to have the AC dike or something. They're just going to make it work.
yeah, and that's where we're. It's on the upstation or lower part of this where we're matching, I believe, a AC curb here.
How close are you at flow line to matching existing?
Let's find out. Thought flow line was pretty close. Flow line's real good.
Yeah, flow line's key, and then maybe what direction we're flowing is something to check. Make sure we don't have a bird bath here without any kind of inlet.
Oh, right. Okay, so what you can do for that sort of checks is you can actually take your existing surface, cut a hole in it at, and I'm not going to go over this today, but you could cut out the EG surface and place in this design surface and then do a water flow analysis there. We don't have a lot to work with right here, but it should be enough. But a quick way to do that is still with the slicer and go like this. And that's just, it looks like we're flowing the same way here. But all right, so there's that. Now, so what I'm going to do is turn off the EG surface, and I just want to check and look at what some of our slopes are. So I'm going to look at how a wheelchair might view this. And we're dealing with a 1%, so it's the gray slope here, 1% on the sidewalk here. And then if I go down our ramp, we have looks like 6.8 to 6.9% on our ramp, which I believe is good. If we go cross up through here, here I'll draw it so that it's the same, looking the same way. We have 1.5% here and 3% from the lip. I believe that's okay. Is that 3% good?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So I'm looking at this going, okay, I don't think we're going to have any ADA issues. So there's that, and we have 10 minutes. So the corridor is done, and I think that it's good for ADA. We have one joint issue that I'm going to bring up with the engineer. But a way to check this, so our crews are going to utilize the slope stake notes to lay this out, though. So we need to check the slope stake notes. So I don't know if I can show this in 10 minutes, but I'm going to try. So what I want to do is create an RXL file and report on that RXL file. I want to report our slope stake note into our slope stake note format. There's a couple tweaks you need to do. So first of all, this corridor is being drawn, and you can see these gray lines here. That's our corridor interval for the surface. And if we export an RXL file, it's going to put a station in there at each one of those, and I don't want it to do that. So in the project settings, computations, There's corridor, and the sampling distance, that specifies this interval where it's going to create an intermediate station. I'm going to create that to put that distance to be greater than my biggest change in station. So if you do 10,000, you're usually fine. And then also the surface, I'm out of practice. I forget what to do on this. Well, that's the first one I know we need to do. Now, what it ends up happening is you end up with not such a good looking corridor. But it's more, it exports more correctly. So ultimately, I think we're going to have macros that handle that sort of thing for us if we can't get TBC to fix it. But so for exporting, this is the setting that I do. I get rid of our sampling. Excuse me. And then we go right to export. It's in corridor, and we want the RXL file from the access road RXL templates. Yeah. So stepping through here, picked all that stuff for us. Generally, I leave the stationing to be the same. I'm going to change the name of this, but I'm going to leave it in the same spots. Oh, go away. So all I need to do is change the name to CR20 template.
Dave, can I ask a quick question before we export?
Right. Yeah, please.
Did you, I did not see, do we have a profile with elevations at each one of the stations matching the PDF?
Yes, that's where I got the profile from.
Okay, so we entered those in. All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
We'll get those
I think what Chaz may be alluding to is sometimes when you export a corridor in TBC, it will sometimes skip stations you don't want. So there's a few ways to force it to do that, and one of them is to have a profile elevation there, which we do. Another one is to create reference templates, and that's a I'm going to leave a lot of that for another time. In this case, we have definitely defined everywhere we want to export a station. So our horizontal alignment station interval, that can't be that. Why is that 0? So, all right. Anyways, getting this RXL file right, there's a whole lot of workarounds for this. There's a million times where it's not great. Okay, so that should have gone into here. So we have our CR20 template. And now what doesn't come installed by default in TBC is the ASCII file generator. Where'd it go? There it is. So you need to get that installed separately. Just a minute. Got a phone call there. All right. So that's an installer you can get off Trimble's website if you search for that. I'm going to select the corridor, the RXL file I just created. So you see I took the address out of that Windows Explorer location here and pasted that into here, and then it brought it up. So there's that. And then the output format looks like, I thought I'd done this on this computer before. Oh, it's because I don't have my M drive initialized yet, so hopefully it doesn't remember that. Let me initialize the M drive. Go back to ASCII file generator. What I wanted it to do was, well, it didn't find it. Okay, it saved the last setting, so now I got to browse to that again, which is going to be a bear in this. No, it's an M drive. Hopefully, CD. Good. Okay, that got me close. And yes, I know this is a mess. It just kind of organically grew into this cancerous blob. It's equipment data. I don't think I have them in Trimble Access. Chaz, do you remember where they're at? If you're with us?
No.
So the reason I don't know is because it defaults to your last location and it's always there. So I don't usually have to do this. TBC is here. Maybe it's there. Here it is. Okay. So we have a report that will take that RxL file and create grid grades for us. You know, now would be a good time before I do this to show what that looks like. So let me open this up. So what we're going to do is edit or look at this in a text editor, and I'll just show you an RxL file for take a moment. So just like any markup thing, it has sections and subsections. So I'm not worried about the horizontal vertical alignment right now. But one thing to note is this is in metric. So any of the numeric fields in here that are distance or whatever related are going to be in metric. So this here is the equivalent of 25 feet. So our station interval is 25 feet. That will influence how this RxL or how the notes are created. In the past, there's been problems with the RxL file exporter that gets messed up. So you can change that if you need to. So it's set for 25 feet. And then the way RxL files work is they define templates and then they apply them. So that's as deep as I'll get into it now, but you can see there's all these template records, and you can check to see the name of them has the station. And you can see this is the name that we gave it here. So 10 plus 17 in landing, 10 plus 17 in landing. So you can go through and see if you are missing or have stations that are in there that you want. But that's as far as I'll go with that right now. So we have that, and back to this. So when you're doing this particular RxL report, you don't want to view it after generating because it has to be viewed in Microsoft Word. So, okay, here we go. And then this window pops up. Select almost, you take almost all these default values. If you leave it blank, it does the start to the end. The padding of the output is to create gaps so that surveyors in the field can write on the notes if they need to. So we don't want to do that right now. And then save it. Now I have this doc file which will open in Word. Still opening, I think, yeah. And now we have slope stake notes, which look like the stationing went to how I expected. So I would then compare this to the slope stake notes provided by the engineer. And we hit the post. I am done, and it is 11:29. So that's all I wanted to show today. So how many people are with us now? How many people hung out for the ride? And I apologize, I have not been looking at the chat. It's just not easy to see that. So I'm open for questions right now and willing to go long if you want. Okay. Well, hopefully, if anybody stuck with it, I'm sorry, was somebody about to say something? For those of you that stuck with it, hopefully you got something out of it. This was recorded, and I'm going to look at maybe how we might share that. And if there's anything, speak up quick. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Hopefully you got something out of it. This one actually went pretty smooth, so I'm glad about that. Again, if you have any TBC questions or whatever about this, go ahead and hit me up. I'm usually pretty open to helping people, all right?